Hello and welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is Dark Sage Walker, and we're moving on to the next build in my series of personal favorites. This is just a list of builds that I've personally found great success with, and I kind of wanted to show them off with a shift in perspective. We're going to be doing piano solos, by the way, in case you heard the die fall. And those two shifts in perspective are, one, I have a good number of new viewers, and I wanted to show them the sorts of builds that I tend to work with. The second thing is, I've been playing a lot with the retro floor plan, and that's given me a new perspective on which abilities are strong and which ones are less strong. And today I wanted to go back and revisit one of my old but good builds, Power Projectiles. This build is entirely centered around the idea of powerful ranged attacks. When I say powerful, I mean ones that just have really strong single hit damage. So, this was my original setup for it. I can already tell you that until Knockout Boulder gets upgraded, we are going to have some issues, because just about everything here does better damage single target. The only area of effect I have is actually Exploding Fireball, and that is going to create some issues. Now, the Dash Arcana that I typically use for this one are Chaotic Rift, because obviously, but there's all sorts of things that I could use for this. Flare Rush actually launches projectiles, so that's one thing I could use. I really feel like my best options, though, would be Thunderline or... Thunderline, Razor Burst, or Wave Front. I think I'm going to go with Thunderline this time. This is one of the popular ones that I like to use. And since we are going Power Projectiles, one thing you could grab is Gloves of Gambit. But one thing that has changed is that I find myself actually preferring Jade's Jewel Tiara, because that will also boost damage of things that aren't projectiles that I happen to find throughout the run. Now, the other thing that you could potentially change is if you're feeling a little bit more adventurous, or you think you can get away with it, you could also go Venture, because that has a lot of the same damage buffs, but it increases run speed and cooldown instead of armor. But it does so at the cost of maximum health, so you're basically turning yourself into a glass cannon. The way that I'm set up, I prefer Rule. That having been said, if you're willing to change out Knockout Boulder for Twin Turbine, then I would definitely recommend the Venture Robe. Now, I'm not going to do that because I want to show off this build as I first put it together. Just understand that I am noticing some of the weaknesses of it right off the bat, and I'm still going to do my best to work with it. One thing that I might change with this build, now, and again, I'm not going to do that because I'm working with this as I originally built it a long time ago. And that is that I would consider putting on Tomo's Claws instead of Jade's Jewel Tiara, just because that will make sure that you have your bouncing fireballs at maximum. Well, at an enhanced state before you enter the trials. Now, because this build is very heavy on range damage, you're probably best off just getting Atlas out of the way first, just so that you don't have to deal with late game Mirror Shield Knights. Now, the obvious upside of this build is that you're doing a lot of damage per hit. The downside is that you are not capable of really taking on multiple targets until you get either upgrades to your Arcana or different Arcana that are better at that. Obviously, once you're upgraded, you can probably take on the upcoming challenges much easier. Until then, you just have to rely on high damage and just put in the work to make sure you're dodging effectively. And that would be one of the pros, is that you've got range on your side to help you handle things. Okay, I definitely see some nice big positives coming in. Namely, we have the upgrade to Bouncing Blaze now. Then it's a matter of, do we take Magnetic Breakers or Dragon Armor? The Bowser Shell is definitely good to take, because that'll help resist getting chained. And it should honestly come as no surprise that that's going to be one of the biggest problems that we face. Now, I'm not married to the idea of Knockout Boulder, and that's something that we could easily drop if it becomes a problem. But do I really want to drop it? Not really. I would like to actually hang on to it. Because as I said right in the beginning preamble, part of what I'm doing is essentially measuring how well some of my personal favorite builds hold up. And if I'm just going to get rid of one of the original staples of the build, well, that's not showing me how it holds up. It's just admitting that I suck. I guess that's a little harsh. It's not necessarily admitting that I suck, it's just admitting that I kind of already failed, and that's not necessarily what I am going for. So the obvious point of this particular build is to make use of your range and your high damage. And there's the Gloves of Gambit. We'll definitely buy those when we get there. As you can see, the benefit of having Thunderline is that you've got something that strikes essentially behind you. So you've got something to help you watch your back. Oh, and as a more minor point, I am recording this earlier in the afternoon before heading out to work for the evening, so we do have some excitable birds. Hold on. Turn it around there, boy. Now, the only one of my Arcana that's not going to boost is Thunderline, and if you choose to come in here with a dash that counts as a projectile, then you can still get that bonus on your dash. So if you do decide to run Flare Rush, for example, it will boost that. But ultimately, I don't think that you need to worry about it. Matter of fact, you could come into this with Spike Track or Chaotic Echoes if you want. The dash isn't necessarily the important part of this build. Strengths that we're looking to take advantage of here are our range and power. Oh, would you look at that? Alright, so before I purchase anything, Shockwire being a great defensive option and Twin Turbines just being a fantastic top-tier spell all around, let's come up here. Well, let's try to find... Let's see, Red Portal was... Oh, yeah. Then we're okay. Yeah, Twin Turbines is one of those overpowered spells that can do literally everything. And as you can see, after upgrading the Boulder, it now has a blast of shrapnel that you can use to cover an area, making it much more usable again in this particular setup. And there we go. Nice, easy fight. This does not count as a projectile, but it still covers a nice long range and still works out just fine in this build, even if Gloves of Gambit don't necessarily work well with it. I probably won't be using it much because both the Twins and Freya are going to resist that damage type. But if you're less worried about that sort of thing, then by all means, just use it. At this point, you can now see that this build is doing a great job of just shredding through enemy groups. I will say Gust Volley is a very good ranged option. It's one of those shotgun spread spells that I really like using. And it does have a lot of potential use case. What was I thinking? I was trying to use that. My brain was just like, yeah, hit the other button. And then going back to the robe choice, I really feel as though Rule is the... Like I said, I think Rule is the right choice because it has greater maximum health than Venture, and it has a little bit of armor, giving you a bit more room to make errors. But if you're feeling comfortable, or if you're starting with something that's a little bit better for handling crowds than Knockout Boulder, then I would actually recommend Venture. That didn't work. Oh, hello. You all know how I feel about Sylvan Help. Never turn it down. A little bit of extra armor is always a good thing. That's right, buddy. Now, I am waiting until the end to pick a cursed relic, because I'm going to pick one of them. Now, if I find even one freebie, I will take the Adorable Mimic. Mostly because that's one of the easiest attack power upgrades that you can get without a downside, aside from having to give up some relics, which, you know, if you've got relics to give up, big deal. Now, we did not get that, so now it's time to think. How much are we going to be suffering for increased cooldowns versus maximum health reduction? This is one area where I think you take the Strongman's Hammer. It's retro floor plan, so we'll get pretty good results off of just one floor. And the cooldown penalty isn't going to be that big of a deal since we've got really good methods of control right now. I guess what I'm saying is that we're not going to need our spells off cooldown all that often. Especially once we're getting that nice meaty damage bonus. As you can see, it's already starting to pay off. As is the Bowser shell. Alright, well, we're gonna grab that regardless of anything. Now, if we end up being able to donate an Arcana to Dr. Song, we definitely do that. If that's not who's at the red portal, then just take Twin Turbines. I mean, it's a win regardless. And yes, I should have taken the portal back, but I mean, are we really gonna complain? I mean, look at those crests on the ground. Oh, fortunately for us, it is Dr. Song. So now let's go find the boss room. Unfortunately, everything is a dead end, so, yeah. Working with this very peculiar map design here. Alright, that's what I thought, but never hurts to look. Well, that seems like a very good option. 1, 2, 3. With 4 elements under our belt, I don't think Captain's Ring is a bad option either. Except it's not counting that. Oh well, so I just wasted a little bit of money. Oh well. It's still more damage. Then Messy Prescription, alongside the Stygian Turtle Shell, is going to do a very good job at keeping our health topped off. I mean, at this point, it's kind of hard not to call this a one run. But you never know what's going to happen, especially with the ice archers and the trouble that they tend to put me through. So let's not call it a one run yet. Let's just say we're looking very, very promising. Owie. Still the easiest boss in the game. So as you can see, we're already up to plus 19.5% damage, and that's just after one floor and like one extra group of enemies. Now, obviously, if you're not playing with Retro Floor Plan, it can be very difficult to justify taking a mid or late game Strongman's Hammer. With Retro Floor Plan, though, it's a lot easier, as there's a lot more enemies for you to scale it with. Nothing here that's really catching my attention. Like, Wind Sentry is good, but I tend to like that one better as a control method, less so just a damage method. Although against bosses it's a fine damage method, and I would say especially so if you're running a critical hit build. Are you still alive? That's just a dead end, but what happens if I go north from here? Another dead end. Sweet, we're finding all the best paths. I mean, there's really nothing there that I want to pick up right away. Sharpened Stylus, because even though it is strong, I don't want to give up. I don't give up on my signature charge. And I think that's about it for this floor anyway. And speaking of Flare Rush, there it is, but I chose to start with Thunderline, so I'm sticking to my guns. Yeah, for once those pits in the corner work out in my favor. For whatever reason, that spell does not count as a projectile. I don't understand why Erupting Cannonade doesn't count as a projectile. Or is it Fiery Cannonade? Erupting Cannonade. I was right the first time. That isn't a bad one at all. It's just this is more of a ranged build, so taking something that's strictly not ranged would be very strange. And and also not benefit from our Gloves of Gambit. Now, the other good thing about this build is that you get a lot of signature charge from how much damage you're doing, since signature charge scales largely with damage. That there are some spells that just innately have higher signature charge. I believe I brought it up yesterday with the possibility that Bouncing Bubble is one of them. But the general rule of thumb is that the higher your damage can scale, the more signature charge you get. So this build is also really good at signature spam, which is normally something you would need to take the Goku robe for, but hey, if they're gonna let you have good signature spam and good damage, there's really no reason not to take advantage of that. As you can see, the Strongman's Hammer is now maxed out. Thank you, Breezy Grey Canvas, for being so great. Fire Breath is not a projectile. We move on. Now, for what it's worth, use whatever you find during your run to make things work. It doesn't have to be a projectile. It's just with Gloves of Gambit, I am incentivized to grab more projectile attacks than not. There we go. And by all rights, this should be a pretty easy kill. Owie, owie, owie. And there you go. Just the high amounts of burst damage you get with this build is pretty impressive. And definitely with the advent of things like Twin Turbines, I'd say this can be one of the most effective builds in the game. You just have to make sure that you're slotting in something that can do well with control. Now, I decided to go without that in lieu of running Knockout Boulder, but you're not going to go wrong by slotting in Twin Turbines. I would also highly recommend Frost Fan. That's good as both just a standard and a signature. And if you start with it as a signature, you also get the idea that those ice daggers pierce enemies. The only thing that needs to change is that when you go to use it as a signature cast, you have to get right up in the enemy's face to get the most damage out of it, but boy will you get damage out of it. So, that's it. Power Projectiles, which is obviously going to have a different name for the thumbnail. I hope you guys all really enjoyed this build. It's said it's one of my personal favorites for a reason. And if you're really having a hard time with the game, give this a try. I'd say outside of crit heal, this is probably one of the more effective builds just because you get both range and power out of it. Just a little something to think about, but for now, I'm going to say thank you all very much for coming and spending some of your free time with me. I really appreciate it. It makes me feel like a much stronger person. Obviously, the YouTube 5-step would be appreciated to help a brother get his channel noticed. I want to welcome the new subscribers and viewers. I hope you're all having a great time with my silly shit. I hope you're all having a fantastic day or night wherever you might happen to be, and I will see you in the next one. My name is Dark Sage Walker, and take care, everybody.